all-time high, as you can see in this graph from the U.S. Energy Information Administration. It shows that the gasoline prices in 1995 have just about tripled by 2020 to 2021. This increasing financial burden has left many searching for a more cost-efficient form of transportation, such as electric vehicles. And this has led to the growth of electric cars.
Good morning. My name is Safi Ali.
My name is Rosanna Slade.
My name is Shahir Ali.
And my name is Camila Neal. As you can see in this graph showing the global plug-in vehicle sales, including both battery electric vehicles in green and hybrid vehicles in blue, the rates of purchases have been rising exponentially from 2012 to 2021. This growth leads to the question, in the 21st century, to what extent have electric cars had a positive impact on society in developed countries? Our argument is that they've had a positive impact through the environment, economy, and consumer convenience.
Thank you, Camila. To begin, electric cars have had a positive impact on the environment. Electric cars have lower carbon emissions in relation to conventional cars. Conventional cars are even leading to many climate change issues, so making the switch over to electric cars is crucial to help save our environment. Electric cars can even be powered by the electricity from renewable sources domestically within the United States from sources such as solar or wind. Cultura, an organization with the goal to promote climate and health, emphasizes we must move away from traditional gasoline-powered vehicles to avert from catastrophic climate change. Furthering this, 1/3 of the U.S. air pollutants in the form of carbon dioxide, smog, and several other toxic chemicals and gases are coming from conventional vehicles. Cultura also says that the abundance of carbon dioxide coming from these conventional vehicles is causing warming land and ocean temperatures, resulting in more severe storms, droughts, and other weather events. In this graph here to my left from UCLA Research, we can see that in blue for conventional vehicles labeled CV over here in this key is significantly higher than that of the red for battery electric vehicles labeled BEV over here in this key. This is showing how much higher the emissions are from conventional vehicle as opposed to an electric vehicle. In this next graph here, coming from Tesla, one of the leading electric car companies in the US and developed countries around the world, we can see once again the statistics for blue, that of the electric vehicles, is completely outweighed by that of the red for an ICE vehicle. ICE meaning internal combustion engine. This is the type of engine used in a conventional vehicle. This brings us to the same conclusion. The life cycle emissions of a conventional vehicle are completely outweighed and much higher than that of an electric vehicle.
Thank you, Rosanna. As Camila mentioned earlier, gas prices have been rising, and they have been reaching an all-time high. And electric vehicles, they offer a cheaper solution to the gasoline problem. The U.S. Department of Energy claims that at a nationwide average, electric vehicles can cost about $1.20 per gallon of gasoline equivalent. Moreover, electric vehicles also have cheaper maintenance. Gasoline prices are highly variable. This graph from the International Energy Agency shows the total cost of gasoline in 6 developed countries ever since 1990 all the way to 2018. And countries over here such as Canada, just the raw cost of tax has been increasing, just the raw cost of gas has been increasing. While in countries like the UK, just the tax on gas has been increasing. Even though in France, as it appears to be decreasing, that is just the tax on gas that is decreasing, while the overall cost still is increasing. These two graphs from the 39th edition of the Transportation Energy Data Book, funded by the National Oak Ridge Laboratory, further illustrate the variability of the price of a gallon of gasoline. This graph over here on the left correlates the price of a gallon of gasoline with the price of a barrel of crude oil, showing how it's reliant on the price of a barrel of crude oil. How whenever this spikes up, the price of a gallon of gasoline also spikes up. This graph over here on the right illustrates how the price of a gallon of gasoline is broken up into 4 highly variable segments, starting at crude oil being the most variable, spiking up and down constantly, then refining, distribution and marketing, and then finally taxes, which is the least variable and most easily controllable by governments and the countries themselves. Moreover, the U.S. Department of Energy, as Rosanna claimed earlier, says that electric vehicles can be powered by cheaper, more sustainable, and less variable sources such as solar or wind. This next graph comes from Tesla, and it shows the total cost of ownership per mile of one of Tesla's electric cars over there, the Model 3 SR Plus, and two conventional vehicles that they have chosen. As Rosanna mentioned earlier, Tesla is one of the leading electric car companies, and they are a highly reliable source. As you can see over here, the Tesla Model 3 SR Plus has significantly cheaper fuel costs when compared to either conventional vehicle, and significantly cheaper maintenance costs when compared to the BMW 3 Series, which is supposed to be one of the more luxurious cars on the conventional car spectrum, showing that electric vehicles are economically better for the consumer.
Thank you, Sophie. As electric car companies are coming up with new innovations, they are making it so that it's easier for the consumer to purchase electric vehicles and switch completely to them. In an article outlining the practicalities of electric vehicles, the author, Bacard, who is a scientist, states that gasoline-powered vehicles are harder to build and, quote, require more maintenance. This is mostly because electric-powered vehicles are not involved with corroded mufflers, oil spills, or tune-ups. All these factors combined help influence the consumer to purchase electric vehicles as they incentivize convenience. As we can see in this graph here by Tesla, it shows that as the distance traveled increases, Tesla's battery capacity retention remains relatively high, with the lowest being around 82% after 200,000 miles traveled. And this shows that Tesla is pushing for energy efficiency and consumer convenience, as after each use, majority of the battery capacity is retained. In this way, other electric car companies are also pushing for energy efficiency and consumer convenience. In this chart here by the US Department of Energy, it shows and emphasizes the differences between all electric vehicles and plug-in hybrid electric vehicles. We can see in this row of the chart here, it shows that electric vehicles can be charged at home, at public charging stations, and at charging stations in the workplace. We can see in this row on the table over here, it also says that all electric vehicles typically run on 2 to 6 cents per mile, that's the cost, and the plug-in hybrid electric vehicles normally run at 4 to 36 cents per mile. We can see that plug-in hybrid electric vehicles have a much bigger range. Thereby, all electric vehicles are typically cheaper per mile, making them more convenient for the consumer and more energy efficient. In this graph here by the US Department of Energy, we can see that the maximum and median range for gasoline vehicles is higher than the median and maximum range for electric vehicles in one charge. Although this may seem negative at first for electric vehicles, you have to consider that over the past few years, electric vehicle ranges have been increasing rapidly. Already, 2022 model vehicles have been released with over 400 miles in one charge, over 500 miles in one charge. This is already 100 miles more than the current maximum. In the future, this gap between electric vehicles and gasoline-powered vehicles will decrease, thereby eliminating this problem.
Thank you. In order to maximize the benefits done to society, people should switch to electric cars. However, this may be a hefty investment for some, with certain models costing upwards of $60,000. An alternative solution to this is switching to a hybrid vehicle. While the benefits of these vehicles may not be quite as insistent as those of purely electric vehicles, they are still significant. However, this is also limited by the fact that these would take a very long time to implement, as the consumer's mindset is not easily swayed. Another potential solution would be to increase the infrastructure for electric vehicles. In this case, charging stations would be everywhere, eliminating the problem Shahir highlighted previously about electric car range. However, once again, this would take a very long time and would also be very expensive. The U.S. Department of Energy and the Environmental Protection Agency state that the average American household could save up to or more than $1,000 on fuel costs each year by simply choosing the most fuel-efficient vehicle in a particular class. This means that it is ultimately up to the consumer to choose which vehicle best suits their needs at the end of the day. Here are our works cited. Thank you. What questions do you have?
All right, Safi, the first question is going to be for you. Safi, give me one specific way that your thinking changed as a result of looking at Camilla's findings.
One specific way that my thinking changed as a result of looking at Camilla's findings is that Camilla, in her research report, talked a lot about wildlife and how how electric cars can be beneficial for wildlife. My perspective was about the economy, so I only considered the economic side, while Camila's perspective helped me consider the environmental and wildlife side of how impactful these electric vehicles really are.
All right, thank you. Shahir, what is an example of a compelling argument from one of your peers' individual reports that you decided to not include in your team presentation, and then why?
So in Camilla's research, we found that there was a reference to how wildlife is affected by electric cars. As electric cars typically use greenhouse gases and they use a lot of pollutants, they might negatively affect wildlife, but we found that this is not relevant to our claim in our research question, so we decided to exclude this from Camilla's, from our presentation.
Thank you. Camilla, describe an argument from one of your peers' individual reports that makes you think differently about your team's solution.
So within Shahir's individual report, he spoke about battery retention of electric cars. And previously, we had been discussing how electric cars might not be a good option because they create a lot of pollutants in the manufacturing of the batteries. However, this made me think differently about that as a potential solution because we would not need to make as many batteries in this case.
All right, thank you. And Rosanna, if you had another team member, what perspective or limitation could they have reached that would have made a useful contribution to your overall project?
Okay, as a group, we decided if we were to have another team member, we would like them to discuss in-depthly the hybrid electric vehicles, as this in our solution was touched on, but we didn't go super in-depth with one perspective. We would like to learn more about the environmental effects as well as the effects on the economy for the consumer, and this would help our solution.